I'm sitting on top of the world, just rolling along.
After spending Christmas in Atlanta, Phil started his schooling in the American Free Enterprise System.
I had 2 or 3 jobs, all of which I thought were very boring. It was just regular business type thing, and he was selling this and selling that, and I thought, gosh, there's got to be more to life than this.
Then, one day in New York, Phil stopped in at Cook Stores to exchange an airline ticket and walked out with a job, escorting a tour group to Hawaii. After 2 years, Phil opened his own travel agency in Atlanta.
I started doing trips of my own rather than selling a trip that's already on the shelf, you know, a Cook's tour or a American Express tour or something or other.
At first, his strategy was big groups, filling up entire planes with bank associations or civic clubs.
The first year I had 3 charter flights out of Atlanta. The average cost was about $690 for the trip over to Europe and for 10 days in Europe, including everything they had, the meals, the hotels, the transportation, guides, everything.
The big groups were fun, but then Phil decided smaller groups would be even more fun and more his style. And knowing something about Atlanta society, Phil thought he knew at least one group of travelers who would jump at the chance to see Europe the Osborne way.
Blue sky, sunshine, what a day to take a walk in the park.
Well, it started in the late 50s based on Phil's love of travel after years of living and traveling abroad. And he promptly started doing exactly what he loved to do, which was to travel, in particular, with beautiful young women.
I've always had a great affinity to girls. I rather liked being around the girls. And I thought, well, if you're going to take people over there, you're not going to take guys. I started doing trips every summer.
And back then, you have to understand that young ladies would never go to Europe alone. But everybody wanted to go to Europe.
And the thing to do for the young debutantes was to see Europe. And a lot of times the parents didn't want to take them. But they didn't want them to backpack or anything. That was just unheard of for an Atlanta debutante. So Phil said, well, I'll take them over on the QE2 or, you know, a wonderful ship, and we'll be safe every night at dinner on the ship. And then I personally will take them around Europe and show them the wonderful things there, and I'll keep them safe, and they don't have to lift a suitcase, and we'll just have a wonderful time.
It's interesting, actually, that he caught that business when he did, because I have daughters 22 and 20, and they've both traveled around Europe with friends. So a tour is not required any longer. But at the time, that was the only way to go.
So all the parents, and they knew Phil, and everybody was going with their friends, and they went and they stayed in wonderful hotels and great locations. You know, they were not backpacking. They were dressing every night. They were shopping their hearts out. And they came back and just raved over it. It was just one of those things that caught on like wildfire. And it was a tradition. If your sister went, you went. You always went with your friends. It wasn't, are you going to take an Osborne tour? It was which summer, which tour.
When he started doing the college tours to Europe, he probably was no more than 30. And I don't know anybody else that did it. He was just known for the Osborne tours to Europe with Southern girls.
Well, Phil was a bit of a legend in his time.
And I would go around to the southern part of the U.S., and I'd have my little briefcase with my carousel and my equipment in it, and I'd show them slides of last year's trips.
And he worked out wonderful booklets all about it, all about the trip, and it was a genius of an idea, because he would go to different sororities with films showing what a great time all your friends had in Europe, and so everybody wanted to go on one of these trips.
Hi, I'm Phil Osborne, your photographer and narrator and escort for our Osborne student visit to Europe.
What he would do is film every year the girls in Europe, and he'd come back and he'd splice it into a movie, which was set to music and which he would narrate.
And off we go, high into the Alps, past the mountain flowers, the yellow blossoms, the alpine rose, the ever-elusive Edelweiss blossom. Mike Schroeder having a little fun playing some frisbee halfway up the mountain.
And you could just see the excitements of the girls, because they could see this is a whole lot more than getting on an American Express trip with some, 60-year-old, stodgy old guy that was going to restrict them and keep them in the house all the time.
So I saw the films, I guess, at the end of my junior year, at the beginning of my senior year, and of course I wanted to go. So a group of my friends and I signed up, and we went.
Oh, it was so much fun. I had to have everything from swimming in Capri to hiking the Alps.
It was a blast. Phil just had this gift. He could get right to the heart of where the action was. I know there was a little town in Switzerland, Thun, only Phil. He makes friends with the local mayor. He comes to know all this little group of local yodelers. There's a castle in the town, and only Phil worked it out to where his tours going through the town would be able to go and have a banquet in the castle, and all the yodelers would sing.